Hi guys, hope you're doing really well, thriving and practicing radical self-care. Some really good self-care practices to get into a habit of is when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that I recommend you do is to put on a guided meditation. And so do some meditation in the morning. I have a morning ritual where I do guided meditation. I do some prayer. I read some spiritual books. Then I go sit in the hot tub with some French press coffee. And then I typically do yoga, and then I'll go for a run, or sometimes I do my run in the evening. And then I'll get onto a spiritual community. I'll get onto like a 12-step recovery meeting at some point, usually before 10 o'clock. Not always, but sometimes I do it the afternoon. So, it's really, really important that you get into a very positive, healthy self-care routine. I have committed to myself to drinking eight glasses of water a day, and I try to do that. I try to make it lovely by putting some lemon and ice in it, but it's really, really important that you really start training your brain and start developing really positive habits. So in this video, what's been coming up a lot is trauma bonding. What is trauma bonding? How to break the trauma bond. So basically, if you've been in, relationships that were not abusive relationships, or with non-narcissists, then you know that it's a totally different sort of breakup. But if you are, what happens, trauma bonds happens when you are in an abusive relationship and you feel like you're unable to leave. And this could be a psychologically, emotionally, physically, or verbally abusive relationship. So what happens is you're holding on to if you're still stuck in it, you're holding on to a promised better future. You tend to focus on all of the good times and ignore the bad stuff. And you might feel a sense of loyalty to a person when other people are telling you that person is not treating you right, or when your intuition is telling you there's something wrong here, but you have an overabundance of loyalty. You're loyal to people that are hurting you. And that tends to be something that codependents typically will be loyal to a fault at times. And so here are some ways to help break the trauma bond. Stop the the self-blaming. There's a little voice in your head that's telling you that you're weak, you're stupid, you deserve this person's the best you're ever going to get, even though they're abusive. The facts are they're abusive. They're psychologically, emotionally, physically, verbally, or one of those abusive. But in your mind, you think they're the best you will ever get. That is a huge sign of a trauma bond, because that is not reality. You're dealing with somebody who's pathological, yet you're like, oh, they're the best I'm ever going to get. Pathological people are not the norm. They're the minority. So there's a lot of wonderful people out there that are emotional, capable of emotional intimacy and kindness and decency, right? But a lot of times with these trauma bonds, you think that it's your fault. And your brain has been programmed to be loyal to this abuser. And that has happened through some intermittent reinforcement and some gaslighting and brainwashing. Also, we are primed for it because our programming from childhood, most of us who end up in abusive relationships suffered abuse or neglect as a child. Whether we had sexual abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, psychological or emotional, we are primed to be in abusive relationships once we grow up. And what happens is your brain is still going to your brain is going to sort of allow you to stay in a position to be hurt for the possibility of love and approval, because that is what was normalized for you in childhood. So, and then you might even have a very deep-rooted unconscious belief that abuse equals love, because if that's what you received as a child, or one of your caregivers or some caregivers around you, you may be equating abuse with love. You might not know the difference, right? Another good way first, stop blaming yourself, stop the secret blame, stop it. And then second, start reality training. So part of the defense mechanism that allows us to stay in a trauma bond is that we will block out, we'll deny, we'll forget, we'll rewrite the reality of the abuse. And we will ignore all the things that they promised because, again, these people, their actions don't match their words, right? Or we'll hold out for hope that they're going to stop drinking, even though they're sitting next to us on the couch drinking whiskey after whiskey, beer after beer, whatever. Like, we'll tell ourselves, oh, maybe this person, they're going to stop drinking one day, or they're going to stop their pornography addiction one day, or they're going to stop cheating one day. Like, we do this thing where we basically will kind of create history and will only focus on the positive. This is where reality training really comes in. If you make a list, you can even get a whiteboard, a big one, and start writing down the key points of what happened, what they actually did. Did they withhold sex? Did they withhold information? Did they financially control? Did they withhold compliments? Did they tell lies of omission? Did they use gaslighting? Did they use stonewalling? Did they use triangulation and triangulate you with their mother or father or siblings or their new source of supply, their affair partner, their girlfriends or boyfriends? Did they triangulate you? Did they use intermittent reinforcement, love bombing, and then withholding? Were these people highly manipulative? Write down the truth. Did they verbally abuse you, physically abuse you? Write down the truth and start getting into reality and get out of fantasy. The truth is your friend here. The truth is going to be your friend. So make a record of everything that happens. Get real. And then if you're still in the relationship with one of these abusers, what you can do is each day you can write down what he said or she said and then what they did. So you can start making a list of where their words and their actions, and you'll start to see that they're not congruent, that their words do not match their actions. These people are verbal bullshitters, right? They just don't tell the truth. And then it might also help you to write down the entire relationship like a story, but write it in sort of as if it happened to somebody else. Like, we were going along, I thought everything was fine. This person never told me that there was any problems. And out of the blue, I found out that this person was having a long-term affair with a married lady with 3 kids, or, whatever your particular story is. Write it down. This person was gaslighting me, manipulating me, giving me flattery, and then withholding sex. Write down your whole story in the third person, so you can see what happened. And one day I was walking into a bar and I met this person, or one day I was going to my neighbor's house for dinner and I met this person that seemed so gentle and kind and sweet and turned out to be a sociopath, or whatever the story happens to be. But write it down. This is going to help you to start getting into reality. Get out of fantasy, get into reality. Again, truth is your friend. And then ask good questions. The secret is you can start learning how to ask good questions. Stop asking why questions and start asking things like this. How long ago did your partner start making promises? What has he or she done to fulfill those promises? Again, are their actions matching their words? What is your ideal relationship? How does this relationship differ from your ideal? What changes do you want your partner to make? What proof do you have that they are capable of making any of these changes, right? Because that would be based on their past behavior patterns, right? So ask yourself these good questions instead of why did this happen to me? Forget that. Why whatever reason. Narcissists pick people for a million different reasons, but stop the why. It's not about you. They are the way they are. They don't bond. They're pathological. They are the way they are, regardless of you. It actually doesn't have anything to do with you other than you let them in. That's it. You ignored red flags. You let them in, and hopefully when you do this work, you're going to learn really healthy boundaries. You let them in because you had probably child abuse or abuse as a child. You didn't have good boundaries. You had trauma as a child. So you thought that this traumatic relationship was normal. It was normalized for you. So you don't let them in. We don't let them in. Okay. I'm going to give you an analogy. A wise mentor said to me, we have this rose garden, and I have a fence around my rose garden, and I can open the gate to the fence and let people in. And when people come in, if they, I tend my roses, I water them, I make sure that they get plenty of sunshine. And when people come in and they smell my roses and they enjoy my roses and they say, oh, these are such beautiful roses, thank you for sharing them with me. And they appreciate my rose garden. And then, they leave and they wave goodbye and they're lovely and kind and delicate. Then I can allow those people back into my rose garden, because I know that they're going to treat my roses with kindness and appreciation and generosity and respect. Or I can let people in, open the door, and they can come in and they can look at my roses and they can say, oh, these are such pretty roses. And then they can trample all over them and rip them out of the ground and, destroy them. And those are the people that I can say, hey, get out of my rose garden. And then next time they come around, I do not need to open the gate. I can wave at them as they walk by if I choose to do so, but I can keep my gate locked and not let those people in. And then, of course, if you're dealing with a covert, they can't come in and smell your roses and pretend to appreciate your roses, but behind your back, when you turn around, they may rip some of your roses out and try to hide it, and then stomp on some other ones and then try to hide it. That's more like the covert narcissist. But it's your job to tend to your rose garden and to notice what's happening with your roses. And when you see those roses that are being pulled out and trampled on, again, that is somebody that you do not need to allow into your garden. And once they've come in and they've done damage, get them out and do not let them back in. That one of my mentors gave me that sort of analogy. Another way to get out of this trauma bond, a shift in perspective will give you some new clarity. So think of it this way. How would your 80 or 70-year-old self look back on this relationship? How are you going to look back on this relationship? And what if, you're 70 years old and you're going to look back? Are you going to be happy that you stayed in this position and sort of allowed this situation to happen? And if you suddenly, you can give another perspective shift. If you suddenly won the lottery and you had $10 million, would you stay in this relationship? Because a lot of times, not always, but sometimes with narcissists or sociopaths or psychopaths, they use money to control. So if you have developed a financial dependence on them, which can happen, then they have that as control over you, and they may be using that to keep you tied to them, right? And then, one other thing that you can do is start to do something really good for yourself, like learn a new hobby or some project you've been putting off, or focus on your goals. Make a list of your goals, of what you would like to accomplish, what makes you happy, and start doing those things so that you get the focus off of this pathologically twisted human being, and get it back on you and what your likes are, what your dislikes are, what you love, what drives you, what your passion is. And then put your focus on your feeling. Get tuned into how you're actually feeling. Abuse will make you numb. It will make you depressed. It will make you disassociate. It will give you emotional dysregulation, fluctuating big emotions. It'll make you feel like you're in the storm. Start focusing on how you're feeling. RAIN. Remember, recognize, acknowledge, investigate, and nurture. RAIN. Get in touch with your true feelings. And this will really, I think, help you to, help to break the trauma bond. And then for sure, stop the blame. Start noticing each time you say, you make me feel this way, or this is how you made me feel, and start replacing it by making I statements. I feel like this when you do this. And stop expecting them to explain things. Each time you hear yourself wanting to force them to explain, try to step away and take a time out. An abuser is never going to tell the truth anyway. So stop explaining things to them and stop asking them for explanation. Make a list of all the ways that you expect them to change. You cannot change someone else. Try to stop pushing for any of these changes. This is also going to help you to see things clearly. Make a list of all the things that you expect for them to change, and then accept that they're never going to change them. And if you're okay with that list, then maybe you should, maybe you're okay with the relationship. And then instead of ranting emotionally with the emotional abuser, call a friend when you're upset and sort of or a therapist or a coach, and sort of vent some of that with them, rather than, again, trying to get this person to change. Part of the delusion of somebody who might have some codependent tendencies and some childhood trauma is this idea that you have any control over anybody else, that if you just do something different, they're going to change. People will not change based on anything that you do. They may change based on something that they do, but not based on anything that you do. You cannot fix people or make them change or even make them move 1 inch if they don't want to do it. And if you're with somebody who has a cluster B personality disorder, they don't really change. It's really hard for them to change. And that would be 10 years of therapy and intensive work and maybe a 12-step recovery program. But these people they don't think they have a problem. They don't think they need to change. So this idea that you're going to change a narcissist, I actually find it's almost, now I got to a point where it is the most absurd idea. It's ridiculous. There's no way that you're ever going to be able to change a narcissist. It's like an ant trying to move an elephant. It's ridiculous. So you can't change them. You're never going to change them. Nothing you do. It's just not going to work, right? So stop trying. That's the delusion of the codependent, that it's your job or that you have the power to fix or change anybody else. This is very delusional thinking. And that's, again, step into reality. You have no control over other people. And then this is really key for me. It's been really key, is to step into mindfulness, to really start practicing mindfulness, meditation, get in touch with a spiritual community. For me, I do a lot of prayer, and not a lot, but I pray, and I'm trying, I really tap into my community. I have a spiritual community of people that are authentic, honest, kind, trying to do their best. They're imperfect and they accept their imperfections, but they try to work on bettering and improving themselves. So I'm very lucky that I have that community, but I did actually find it through 12-step recovery. And I feel like that's available to any of you, especially if you don't identify as an addict or an alcoholic, but you do identify as having some of these codependent behaviors. Then I suggest that you go to Codependence Anonymous. You could also go to ACA, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. If you were raised by an alcoholic, an addict, an abuser, a narcissist, that's a really good program as well. So definitely seeking some spiritual community, and surround yourself with people that are kind, authentic, and honest, that live in the truth, right? And then that dichotomy, when you look at the narcissist who lives in fantasy, la la land, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs land, narc world, the more you surround yourself with people that are authentic, that are vulnerable, that are honest, that are kind, the more you're going to see this chasm between those people and the narcissist that is inauthentic. They're the least authentic people you will ever meet. They act like they're invulnerable, but they have this deep-seated insecurity. They're very weak internally, and they are very dependent on other people, even though they act like they're completely independent. They're never alone. They're always in relationships, right? They always need somebody to mirror. So they're deeply dependent, even though they act like they're islands, right? So, surround yourself with people that are authentic, that are kind, that are honest, and really get out of the fantasy and step into reality. And the more you step into reality and the more you empower yourself by doing really radical self-care, the more the focus you take off of this pathological person and put it onto your life and what you want to do with it and how you're going to grow it and how you're going to make it a beautiful thing, the more healing that will be available to you. And I hope you guys are thriving and practicing radical self-care. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.